time for our robin's nest. And I feel like robin's nests are one of the easiest ones to recognize out in nature. And part of that is because they use mud so much of the time to build their nests. And it's kind of sad in the fall and winter to see them just completely fall apart when that mud gets washed away. So just look at this. There's so many grasses and sticks and leaves built up, and then the whole mud thing going on. And then inside, softer grasses to nestle those eggs. So you can see it's like a bowl or even a cup or teacup, I think, of shape. And we want to try to capture that with all this other crazy stuff going on. So let's draw an opening for that bowl, or for the nest, but we're thinking of it as a bowl. And then let's put in where we see, I'm still not happy with that shape. I feel like it is an oval. Maybe that's kind of about what it is. Let's put in now where this mud goes, and it's a very distinct shape kind of right here. And then, and this grass kind of goes crazy everywhere. Why don't we put those eggs in? That'll help us to look for the placement of other things. There's one hiding. There's one here. I feel like these eggs also are extraordinarily blue. Maybe the photo's been, I don't know, saturated or something, but I suppose when we find these in nature, they are very blue. Okay, now we see where the mud goes, and then sort of the nest kind of has this shape down to here, and there's sticks, and let's draw in where that leaf, that dead leaf is, because we'll want to add that in, and some other leaves coming out of it. How about over here? The nest kind of does this bulging shape here, and then more goes like this with all kinds of sticks. I think this gives us enough of a shape to start painting with. So to begin with, we need to take a white crayon and just do some little drawings of where we see really light colored grasses. This is just going to help us because we are not using white paint, and we don't want to try to leave them out. Let's just draw in where we see some of these light ones. We won't get all of them. Maybe one or two stick out from the edge. And then there's quite a lot down here that are light colored. So just look at the picture and the direction the sticks go. I'm not trying to get every little stick in its own little place. I'm just honestly getting a taste of the way this is constructed and where there might be some bright little sticks. It's all guesswork, but it's going to give us the idea of a nest. All right, now let's start with sort of this lightest color that we see there in the nest. The color is, let's start with some yellow. And maybe add a little, well, I think we might, okay, we could add the tiniest bit of burnt sienna, but not too much. And then a little bit of ultramarine. That's going to pull it around to be slightly more towards the green side. So we've got some green yellow here. And I think this will be a good straw color. Now, we don't want to paint over our eggs, but let's go in and paint sort of where we would see these straw-colored sticks. Just look at the sort of way that they're shaped and put some in There's a lot of them here inside. These mama birds know so well how to care for their little babies, and they use those bigger twigs on the outside, and then these softer ones on the inside. So we're just going around and trying to look at the general direction of the sticks and then paint some in. Good thing about a nest is the sticks go every which direction. I think that's probably about good. And now we want a gray. So we'll take some ultramarine and mix it with burnt sienna. We don't want it to be too dark yet. So there's plenty of water there. And then go in here and just paint in between where you put those little straw colored bits. I'm painting that white places that are left between those little bits. And you can see the yellow bits begin to show up. And also our white crayon highlights are showing up a little bit too. The wax makes a resist and the paint doesn't stick. Okay. Almost got the inside of the nest done there. Okay, now let's see what we want to add. Maybe we want to add just a little bit more burnt sienna to that color and go in and maybe darken up sort of the left side of some of these little bits of straw just to add another layer and help with the depth. Don't cover up all the yellow. Try to draw maybe a little bit on one side of that straw colored. Now we can go in with an even darker gray. And let's not put this everywhere, but some places, let's put the darker part in. And oops, it looks like I could have painted a little bit more closer to my eggs. So put some of this darker in, but leave some of the lighter showing. And okay, I think that's all we're going to do inside for right now. We might come back to that later and add to it. Let's go ahead and put this mud color in right now. And what do we think? I think we could use some of that gray we have with a little bit of water added to it. And we'll just start off by putting a bunch of this mud color right in here. And maybe grabbing a little bit of darker to give it a little bit of interest. The mud kind of goes all the way down in here. So now we need to add sticks at this level. I think before we do that, let's add in this dead leaf. I think this color I've got here left over from the top will do just fine. Paint that in, and even these other leaves that will darken up later. Let's just paint in anything. I'm putting this in, it's not quite the right color, but it'll give us the idea. There's another one back there. Now, these sticks are a bit more on the gray side than these yellow ones up here. So let's take a lot of water, just a little bit of gray, and put a bunch of these in down here. There's just so many of them. Notice how they crisscross and weave in and out. Some are thick and thin. We just have to do the best that we can with our water brush since we can only use one brush. Just make them crisscross in there. And this is just the first layer, so we'll get, I see more over here. We'll get more in there as we layer it on. I see a lot of brown sticks going on in there, so let's add some burnt sienna to this gray that we have. And put in some of these brown sticks. They kind of come, I see them coming down and out. You know, different kinds of birds prefer different kind of building, and it's interesting the cardinal loves to use grapevine. I guess the robin's thing is mud. Wherever you see a lot of brown sticks, put them in. There's quite a lot, and they kind of look really fine to me up here in this sort of basket part. There's just so many. Can't remember how long it takes Mrs. Robin to make her nest. Now that we've got some brown in there, we need to go in with a darker gray. Again, our ultramarine and burnt sienna. And paint in some of these spaces in between the sticks, if you can. Leaving those brown ones to show. And we don't want to cover up our leaf. Let's paint around it so it sticks out. There we go, it's sticking out a bit more. You can see how dark it is around there. And down here, I'm going to add a little bit more blue to this because I don't want it to be the same kind of gray everywhere around the nest. So I just put some more blue in the gray, and now I'll fill in between some of these sticks we created. And now how is our mud looking? I feel like our mud needs to be darkened up here and there. Kind of, it's got a sort of, I don't know, textured appearance almost. Just it's smooth, but you can see that there's sediment and stuff in there. We want it to kind of look like that. So I'm just dancing the brush across to give it a little bit more texture. And I feel like we need some more dark over here. The mud just kind of blends right into where the sticks are. And then down here, it just gets so light. We could add a little bit of texture and shadow onto that leaf now. Just see what we want to do. I also think we could darken up some of the brown sticks that we put in earlier that have dried lighter. They do, in the picture, come across as quite brown and definitely not just light brown. So go through and and just add in some of that. And over here a little. Okay, now let's get a little more texture and sticks going on up here at the top. The sticks kind of come out around the edge of this whole nest business. It's hard to tell where things end and begin. So we're going to want to change color too. We don't want all the sticks the same color. Let's get some more blue-gray and put in some of those sticks as well. And sticks coming out just randomly and crazy make it look a little bit more natural. It's just funny, they kind of come out of everywhere. There's so many of them. So we'll just put in some more here. And maybe add in, there's so gray down here. I think we just need to add in a bit more brown to mix in with that. And it might be nice to add a bit, just to smooth this nest into our page. We could get this wet over here with a clean brush, and then just take a little bit of our blue-gray and push that in like that. And you can see our crayon bits are coming out in the white there. All right, let's deal with those eggs. Now, if you've already watched the egg, you can see that we need to start out with a little bit of cerulean with the tiniest bit of yellow and plenty of water. And we want to notice where the highlights are on those eggs and leave the highlights. It's hard to tell, but we can kind of figure it out. And let's let those eggs dry for just a minute. I think I need to come in here and paint that. We're letting those eggs dry. We mix up a little bit stronger burnt sienna. And now we can come in and add that second layer of paint, trying hard to leave our highlight and make these look egg-shaped. We might have made our highlight too large, in which case just go in with an almost clean brush and fix that up a little. Now, what we do need to want to do as soon as those eggs are really dry is make that space between them very dark so that they stick out. And I don't think I'm going to go in and add any more color to those eggs because they're small and I don't want them to be overdone. And I think that's looking good for our eggs there right now. Do we see anything else that we might want to do? I feel like I would like to add a few sticks here. This area is just looking kind of bare. And so I'm going to do that and maybe a few more that come out over here. I'm trying to use the very tip of the water brush for this. And we can even put in one or two more. But let's change up the color so that we don't keep getting the same. There's not enough brown in that. We don't keep getting the same stick color everywhere we go. Okay, Is there anywhere that I just really want to put a dark, and maybe just under there a little, maybe in there. I could put some more in here. It really depends on how much time you have to continue to go back and darken that up. Or when you feel like your painting really has enough and you're happy to stop. And I am just about happy to stop. You can take your white pen, especially after this is dry. It's not going to work so great when it isn't dry. And you can add, if my pen will work, you can add more little highlights. Clearly this is not quite dry enough for that. But you can go in and add little highlights with your white gel pen after you've done all the painting. You know, I just feel like the inside of the nest is just a little bit too bright with those yellow straw colored sticks. And so I just kind of want to darken it up a little with a bunch of yellow and burnt sienna and the tiniest bit of our gray, so it's not so bright. Maybe a little bit more of our gray. And I just want to go in and kind of tone these down a little here and there. Again, because of our water brush, we can't get things to be so perfect and precise. Let's add a little bit more gray to this and bring down the color just a little bit more, just so it's not sticking out too much, too bright. I think that's helped a lot. And you can even pull some of this color out into the outer nest there. I think that's helped a lot to make the center of the nest not so bright.